Rotarians and guests, welcome to the January 27th meeting of the Rotary Club of York. Our members are dedicated to service above self and Rotary's four-way test. Leading us today in our song and pledge is Alan Roth, and delivering our invocation is President-elect nominee Glenn Miller. Alan.
Thank you, President Ann. Rotarians, please join me virtually. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Sorry about that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Glenn?
Good morning, everyone, again, and please join me in prayer. God of mercy and justice, your vision for your people is one of equity and inclusion, an embracing of the diversity of gifts and talents that we have that have their source in you and their manifestation in each one of us. In 1978, fellow Rotarians took a step toward realizing that vision when they admitted the first woman to a Rotary Club. And in 1987, that club and our speaker took another step toward embracing that vision, electing her as their first Rotary Club president. Those steps taken across the country rippled across the world as more and more we rose to our calling to embrace and include one another fully, men and women of every race and language, color, and creed. We thank you for the progress we have made, and we acknowledge the work that remains as we continue the struggle to rise to our calling until that work is complete. Bless our time together in this virtual space. Remind us all that even apart from pandemics, we are bound together across time and space by our love for one another and our commitment to our mission and one another. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Alan and Glenn, for that excellent opening. We have several announcements today. Our deepest sympathy to Rotarians Frank Dittenhefer and Sue Ann Klein on the passing of Frank's father, Frank Sr., on January 11th. Deepest sympathies to past President Brian Tate and spouse Ralph Serpy on the passing of Ralph's father, Vincent, on January 13th. We also are announcing the resignation of Rotarian Mike Bowman after 36 years as a club member. Mike, we thank you for your service above self. The CEF board will meet today following the club meeting. Thank you in advance for submitting a nomination to our WITF 2021 Teacher Impact Awards. This is a fortuitous announcement with our wonderful speaker today. The deadline for those Teacher Impact Award nominations is February 25th. Next, I would like to read a resolution of respect for our dear friend, Henry H. Kirkpatrick Jr. This was passed by our board of directors at our January 14th meeting. Whereas Henry H. Kirkpatrick Jr. was born on October 22nd, 1924 in Reading, Pennsylvania, the son of the late Henry H. and Florence Sharp Kirkpatrick. And whereas Henry graduated from Muhlenberg Township High School and from Penn State as a member of Sigma Chi fraternity and did postgraduate work in industrial engineering. And whereas Henry served as a rifleman in the 84th Infantry Division during World War II and on Christmas Day, 1944, was evacuated from the front lines of the Battle of the Bulge with injuries incurred on a scouting mission. And whereas Henry moved from Lancaster to York in 1955 with his young family to work with York Air Conditioning as a trust officer with York Bank, and ended his working career with Janney Montgomery Scott. And whereas Henry was active in many organizations in the community, including the First Presbyterian Church, where he was an elder, and was an avid golfer, especially while traveling near and far with his wife. And whereas Henry was a member of the Rotary Club of York for 57 years, attending the Wednesday lunch meetings regularly, making them an important part of his week and enjoying the fellowship with his fellow Rotarians, and was a 2 Sapphire Paul Harris Fellow. And whereas Henry H. Kirkpatrick Jr. was husband to the late Caroline Kirkpatrick, father to Robert G. Kirkpatrick and Susan Kirkpatrick Souser, grandfather and great-grandfather. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors, officers, and members of the Rotary Club of York on the January 14th, 2021, express their deepest sympathies to the family of Rotarian Henry H. Kirkpatrick Jr. Be it further resolved that this resolution of respect be forwarded to the family of Rotarian Henry H. Kirkpatrick Jr. on this day. May you rest in peace, Henry, and thank you to all those Rotarians who gave their time to make sure that Henry could attend our club meetings. When we get back together in person, we'll put a celebratory 2 desserts in front of his place at our club. Now for our Biz Spotlight. Today is People's Bank, a Codorus Valley company. People's Bank opened their doors over 150 years ago and thrived through some of our nation's most volatile moments. Today, People's Bank is the largest independent financial institution based in York County with 16 locations in York County. Last year, People's Bank refreshed their brand, including providing clients with a personal or business vision board, an interactive touchscreen with plans to roll out that initiative at their new locations this year. Since 1864, People's Bank has been building our community. They support more than 150 nonprofit organizations throughout Pennsylvania and Maryland, including the York Revolution at People's Bank Park. Last year, People's Bank gave back over $1.8 million to those in need. In addition, they provide financial literacy education to students in 11 school districts. To help reduce the spread of COVID in our community, they launched video calls as a safe way for clients to receive services and move 40% of their associates to working remotely. People's Bank processed more than 1,300 PPP loans, totaling almost $182 million. 83% of those loans supported small businesses with loan amounts below $150,000. They are now assisting clients with the PPP second draw. Thank you to Rotarian Larry Miller for your decades of leadership of this fine financial institution, and also for your membership and involvement in Rotary Club of York since April of 2002. Now I'd like to welcome Chris Toff, a representative from our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, to share an update on our member survey. Chris.
Thank you, President Dan. Good afternoon, Rotarians. I want to start off by saying we're very used to regular updates with the software on our phones and our computers. Less frequently and a lot more costly are the regular updates we need on our vehicles. And most of us even get regular checkups at the doctor and the dentist to make sure we're keeping current with things. Oddly enough, with all of that, there are a ton of things that we see fit to update on a regular basis, but we don't take nearly enough time to look completely at ourselves and the organizations that we're a part of. And listen, I understand it. Updating my phone is a tap away. Bringing in my car or going to the doctor is a limited amount of time on a given day. Hard work really comes into play, along with a lot of time to change our individual behavior and the behavior of the groups that we're a part of. There are many times in our club's history where we saw fit to take a look in the mirror at ourselves and make changes, necessary changes, and from what I gather, not always unanimously popular changes. My guess is that someone, and not necessarily in our club, in 1987 made the choice, or had the choice made for them, for the better I may add, to add the first female member to our club. Progress had been made. 12 years later, Jody Keller, 10 years into her club membership, became our club's first female president. Progress had been made. Over the past 12 months of pandemic, social unrest, and political division like we have not seen in my limited 49 years of life, we find ourselves in a place and time where self-reflection and likely a good bit of self-improvement is necessary for our club. The focus of this self-reflection is the makeup of our club. The DEI Task Force, DEI standing for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, is sending out a survey to all members to take the temperature of where you, as members, believe we are on this issue. For an organization that is part of Rotary International in a country known as the Melting Pot, I would say that we are a touch short of representing a broad range of people in our membership and are not even representative of the area in which our club should serve to benefit. Before you even begin to take this survey, I can tell you that we have already made a little bit of progress since a Rotary Club of York survey that went out in 1996. When members were asked what they wanted to change most about the club, just 2.2% responded increased diversity in membership, which was just short of the apparently much more important issues of more assigned seating, which got 5.1%, and nothing needs to be changed, which was at 8.8%. The reason that I believe we have improved is because we have a task force of people right now that's looking at this that amount to actually more than 2.2% of our membership straight away. Progress has been made. Examining the topic of diversity, equity, inclusion is important. We need to know where the general mindset of the club is and what course we need to put ourselves on for the all-important self-improvement part of things. That is why we have put together a survey that is completely anonymous. None of your names or email addresses come back with your responses. The reasons for keeping things anonymous is because we want raw data, maybe even data that is laced with emotion. In order to make the right choices for the Rotary Club of York, we need pure feedback. The survey was set up to take about 10 minutes of your time, 6 to answer the questions, and hopefully at least 4 for any additional comments. As a task force, we're not reading a verse, so please make as many comments as you like. It is for the greater good, which at the end of the day is what Rotary is all about. Hard work, a lot of conversation, and I'm telling you, when I say a lot of conversation went into putting this survey together. The expectation is that we will get excellent feedback from a membership that is caring and deeply invested in the future of our club. Be on the lookout tomorrow morning at 7:15 a.m. when the survey hits your email. We wanted to give you a night to sleep on your thoughts on the heady topic at hand. Fill it out over coffee or while catching up on the day's events during a splendid Fox 43 newscast. We are counting on each of you and thank you in advance for taking part. 2021 is a year that many people have been looking forward to after the dumpster fire that 2020 was. Let's make this year as important to our club as 1987 and 1988. Let's look back on 2021 as a year where we can say progress was made. Thank you, everybody. And if for some reason you don't get it in your email, feel free to reach out to me and I'll make sure you get it. Back to you, President Dan.
Thank you so much, Chris, for teeing up the importance of our member input and our member feedback in regard to the future of our club. As all of you know, our committee work fuels our community impact. And I really appreciate the efforts of Chris and Cal Weary, who is our new DEI committee chair, and all those many hands that made light work of this survey. There's been a lot of input into this, and thank you so much, Chris, for sharing a historical perspective. We appreciate in advance everyone providing your input in regard to this survey. And now, from our Youth Leadership Committee, Eric Chase will introduce our 2 Students of the Month from Logos Academy. Eric.
Thank you, Ann. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our Students of the Month from the Logos Academy. I'll introduce both students and then we'll hear from them via video, but both students are with us live today. So if you just wave to them as I go through their introductions, that would be great. Our first student is a junior. Her name is Jamalat Centron, and she is the daughter of Omeira Padilla. In her school activities, she likes to play the handbells, which I heard some Rotarians earlier talking about their musical abilities. So You might want to see Yamilet about her handbell ability. She also enjoys piano and singing. She loves to draw and Bible study. She says so far she's been on the Distinguished Honor Roll in all the grades 9 through 11. And she's also participated in the Hobie, a leadership seminar. Her career plans is she plans to go to a prestigious college and study majoring in forensic science or criminal justice. Our second student from Logos Academy is also a junior. His name is Elliot Caruth. He is the son of Paul and Barbara Caruth, and his mom is with him today on screen. He, in school activities, he is the editor of the school yearbook. He's on the operating team for the school, or operating tech team for the school, for school assemblies. He's also on the high school baseball team, and he's co-editor of the school media production. He likes to play sports, biking, being outside, fulfilling tech duties for his church, and spending time with his family and friends. He's been on the Distinguished Honor Roll. He's the class representative for student government, and he attended the Student Leadership Conference also. His career plans are to pursue a field in statistics, specifically in sports or the sports world, or potentially starting a business. Fellow Rotarians, let's give a warm welcome to our students of the month from Logos Academy, Yamilet and Elliot.
Four years ago, I found myself lost and in need of a place where I could be me. My name is Yamilet Centron, and I am a junior at Logos Academy. Throughout my entire life, the core values of humility and respect have always been instilled in me. I was born in Ay Bonito, Puerto Rico, and came here to York, PA at the age of 2. Being that my family did not have the proper resources to flourish, I was obligated to start from the bottom. As I grew older, I fell in love with the way that this city has been greatly underestimated, yet defies the odds. I say this because I have been able to rejoice in the great opportunities and the beauty of family that York has to offer. Because of this community, my family was able to stabilize themselves and become a part of this city. Little by little, we have been able to bring my grandmothers here and create strong bonds with what we believe to call home. I grew up in public schools and never found my place among so many students. During my freshman year, I chose to transfer to Logos Academy. Not only did I find a smaller and more family-centered school, but I found a place where I could express myself through many of its liberal arts programs. My faith in God and passion for my community has helped me be humbly recognized for awards much like these. When I go to college for forensic engineering and/or criminology, I will flourish knowing that my foundation was built upon a city where no one is left behind. I greatly appreciate the love and dedication that the Rotary Club of York puts towards our youth. Coming from a young woman herself, I strongly believe that programs like these give hope to the young people of our community. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Elliot Caruth, and I'm a junior at Logos Academy. Hard work has always been an important value to me, and it has constantly been displayed to me from the time I was young. My maternal grandfather grew up as the youngest of 5 children. He went on to serve in the United States Air Force, teach high school students, and paint homes in the summer. My paternal grandfather, one of 9, served in the Army, worked for a light company in Pittsburgh for many years, and tackled all his home renovations and repairs himself. My father is also an extremely hard worker, as a co-owner of a business and as a father. My mother is constantly at work around the house, doing laundry, making a meal, cleaning, or in some other way helping and taking care of my 3 siblings and me. These values have been instilled in me as well. From the time I was young, I was always helping someone with something. Sometimes it was at my house, sometimes at church, and other times with my grandparents. In recent years, when my grandparents began to need more help, I was often at their house, mowing their lawn, assisting with other outdoor work, or helping my grandma with something around the house. Independently, I started my own business when I was 14 years old. Over the past 3 years, I have worked hard to grow this into a profitable business. I spent many days this past summer mowing lawns, trimming bushes, or pulling weeds. This was hard work and not always what I wanted to be doing on my summer vacation. However, I worked hard at it, whatever it was, and made a business out of it. Hard work is a big part of my heritage, and it will continue on through the generations of my family. I am so grateful to have received this honor from the Rotary Club, knowing that you are an organization that shares my hardworking attitude to serve our community. Thank you.
Congratulations to Yamilet and Ellie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an honor to honor you today as our Students of the Month from Logos Academy. And very interesting to see how you both honored your grandparents and how important they were in your lives. And it's obvious that with two young people that are hard workers, that are dedicated, multi-talented, and involved in giving in many ways, that they had a positive influence on you. You give hope to our future. It's an honor for us to recognize your achievements and your hard work. And I love the term that you used, Yamilet, flourish. It's obvious that you care very deeply for your family and our community, and it's individuals like you that we know will flourish in your future. And we hope that you keep Rotary in mind wherever you land, hopefully back in York. But Rotary is a worldwide organization. Our speaker today is an educator. I hope you can stay and listen to her. And you emulate the values of Rotary, which are service above self. So if these were normal times, we would be having a lunch meeting and you would hear a roaring round of applause from over 100 individuals. You can't hear that today because we're all virtual, but I can tell you that this is one of the favorite opportunities of our club to see young folks like you that are so hardworking and have achieved so much in your young years. And we absolutely wish you the very best for your future. And we hope that you please come back to visit us at any point in time when you would like to, when we're actually meeting in person. We'd love to get to meet you and congratulate you in person. And we will have the honor of featuring your accomplishments with Scholastic Achievement Award certificates, which we'll send to you. So thank you and congratulations. Best wishes on your future.
Thank you.
So now we go from honoring two students to honoring and featuring two Rotarian trailblazers, both a worldwide and local level leaders. Jody Keller was our club's first female president in 1998. Gordon Freirich told me that he had the privilege of being the first outgoing president to kiss his successor during the installation ceremony. Jody instituted, for those of you that remember her leadership, Bad Joke Wednesday, and she is still trying to live that down. So friends, guests, fellow Rotarians, it is with great trepidation that I turn the virtual podium over to past President Jody Keller. Jody.
Oh, and this was so hard for me to resist. Let me just tell you that. But I will say that I have one thing to say, and I looked back at my diary that I've been keeping during the quarantine, and this is from month 6. I fiercely fought with my husband over what day of the week it was today. We were both wrong. So that was tame, but I thought amusing. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. When President Ann asked that I introduce today's speaker, I was excited to learn more about Dr. Sylvia Whitlock and the circumstances of how she became the first woman president of a Rotary Club in the world. As the men and now women of, let me go back. Perhaps some of you know the history, having lived it as a Rotarian back in the 1970s. Many of us remember that time as tumultuous, with social and political issues in the forefront and on the news. This was a time of change for Rotary as well. In 1977, the Rotary Club of Duarte, California, a small city in Los Angeles County, admitted 3 women as new members. It had its charter revoked in 1978, and then Dr. Whitlock joined the club in 1982, and the rest was history. As the men and now women of this ex-Rotary Club of Duarte continued to meet, lawsuits were filed, and after nearly a decade, in May of 1987, the US Supreme Court ruled that women could not be excluded from membership on the basis of gender. Dr. Whitlock became president that year. The Duarte Club had been described as the mouse that roared. Thanks to the courage and resolve of the male members who initially moved to accept qualified women as members. Dr. Whitlock achieved recognition for her Rotary activity as well as her significant accomplishments, of which there are many. They speak volumes about the character of this remarkable woman. As a professional, she's worked for the United Nations, holds advanced degrees in education and psychology, and is a licensed family therapist. Her Rotary involvement has included travel to clubs all over the world. She's chaired multiple district committees and served as district governor in 2012. A Rotary International Award was established in her name and presented to her at the 2017 International Convention. She's been instrumental in the establishment of AIDS clinic in Jamaica, an orphanage in Mexico, and wells in Nicaragua. She's a frequent speaker and has presented at over 100 district conferences and multiple international assemblies. She's a Paul Harris Fellow, benefactor, and member of the Bequest Society. And this is only a brief highlight of her history as one who has dedicated her life to the service of others. On a personal note, Jean Ream and I became 2 of the first women to be admitted to the Rotary Club of York in 1988. It's hard to believe that was just over 30 years ago, and at the time, I didn't really truly grasp the significance. It's with great pride and appreciation that I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Sylvia Whitlock.
Thank you, Jody. I'm happy to be here today in York, virtually. So we're going to talk about the edge of tomorrow. The edge of tomorrow for me used to be the day when we would see polio eradicated from the world. Today, we're looking at seeing coronavirus eradicated from the world. It will happen. I have my vaccine, you're getting yours, it will happen. So back to polio. Polio is endemic really in only 2 places now, in Afghanistan and in Pakistan, because we saw last year that Nigeria, Africa fell off that list of endemic countries. So now we're getting close to seeing the silver anniversary of women in Rotary. Well, it's been maybe 34 years. How many of you were members of Rotary 30 years ago when all this was going on? How many of you before the program was announced? Usually this happens when there are young people in the club. How many knew that there was a time when women could not be Rotarians? I knew, because I was invited by the superintendent of schools, Superintendent Richard Key, to join. I was a new principal in the district. I was interested in what the community was like. I talked with my superintendent and he said, we take care of the community. Who is we? We are Rotary. Well, what I knew about Rotary then could have been loosely written on the head of a pin. Like most of you, when you come into Rotary, you don't know much before. I knew about Kiwanis. You know what Kiwanis means? Means waiting to get into Rotary. Well, You know what? A Kiwanian told that joke. But you know, Kiwanians do the same kind of wonderful humanitarian service that we do as Rotarians. But I also knew about elks. They wear those great hats. And as somebody mentioned, I worked in New York City for the United Nations. You walk up and down 42nd Street, there are elks walking up and down with those big hats, beautiful hats. And you say, what are those? And somebody says, oh, they're elks. And you say, oh, really? Elks? Okay. And I knew about lions because I'm a school person. And lions provide eyeglasses in school for the kids. But I literally had never heard about Rotary, not an uncommon occurrence. I knew that in my school district, they were locked in a court struggle with our small club, the Duarte Club. And I'll tell you a little bit about the legal wrangling and some of the funnier and more interesting experiences that I had. All of them worthwhile. So Duarte. Duarte is a little bedroom community in the San Gabriel Valley, home to the renowned City of Hope Hospital, big cancer hospital, and of course the Duarte Unified School District, the ranking business. But in that district was the small club struggling, as we all do, to raise membership. The year was 1976. And the superintendent of schools, who really deserves all the credit for this action, he looked around at his community and he saw all these manager types. And at that time, Rotarians were all CEOs and manager types in their businesses. Well, there was a principals, a reporter, psychologist that were perfect for rounding out the Rotary classification system. But they were all women. So Richard thought, why not invite these women to join Rotary? So he called the district governor and he told him what he was thinking about. He asked what he thought. And the district governor, smart guy, said, I won't tell you his name, you can look him up because he didn't pass the 4-way test. But he said, I think that's a great idea, Richard. Go ahead. But when you send their names into headquarters, just use their first name initials. S. Whitlock could be Stephen Whitlock. M. Elliott could be Michael Elliott. Nobody will know they're women. Okay. You know, that was designed to deceive, right? Well, that's what Richard did. The action was not without its dissenters. There was one member of the club who knew he could recognize the problem. He said, this is going to result in the death of the club. And he was peculiarly situated to be able to recognize death. And he resigned, and it left our undertaker classification open because he was our resident undertaker. Well, the women came into the club and they entered wholeheartedly into the spirit and the work of Rotary. You know, we had yard sales, snow cones for the city picnic, breakfast with Santa Claus, breakfast with the Easter Bunny, Thanksgiving baskets for needy families, cancer survivors, and so on. But they also got busy planning their 25th anniversary. And of course, Rotary International sends representatives to help clubs recognize those milestones, observe those milestones. And so they came to Duarte. Well, at the festivities, the women were introduced to the palpable consternation of the representative. The cause was obvious. The representative returned to Evanston after the party was over and reported, can you imagine? There are women in the Duarte Club. Well, headquarters didn't go to sleep on that. They lost no time in notifying Duarte that 1, women were not allowed in Rotary. 2, women needed to be asked to leave. 3, if they did not leave, the club had to stop calling itself a Rotary Club. 1, 2, 3. And the club took a vote and decided it would not ask the women to leave. After all, they were doing all the work. Instead, it asked to appeal to the board of directors. but it was told immediately that it could not appeal to the board of directors as long as the women were there, because only real Rotary clubs could appeal to the board of directors. Well, the club decided it would appeal to the Council of Legislation, that's the lawmaking constitution body. And that Council on Legislation was meeting in Tokyo that year. So someone was chosen to take the issue to Tokyo. But it was an interesting situation because when it came up, it was not whether women should be permitted to be members. That wasn't the issue that came up. The issue was, did the Rotary Club of Duarte violate constitutional bylaws, Rotary bylaws, by inviting women in as members? And of course, the answer was clear. The die was cast. The vote against having the club retain its women was 1,000 to 34. There were actually 34 delegates who thought there should be women in Rotary. They were sympathetic to the issue. And I met one of them in Calgary in the late 80s. I was on a train going to the convention. Some of you may remember the convention was in Calgary. I was riding into the convention and I was sitting across from a couple, and everybody was tagged. You know how we are when we're at conventions and you like to read people's tags. And the man and his wife across from me were reading my tag. And the gentleman said to me, "Are you from the club that tried to get women in Rotary?" I said, "Yeah." I'm really excited now because here I am, obviously, in Rotary. And he said, "You know, I was at the Council on Legislation in Tokyo, and I voted to get women in Rotary." So that was not the issue, that's what he voted for. I voted to get women in Rotary because I always thought they should be there. And his wife, who was sitting next to him, quietly said, "I didn't think so then, and I don't think so now." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "You know why?" She said, "We have women going out, we have our men going out to meetings at night, and we don't want women going out to those meetings too. We don't know what's going on." And I said, "But you know, not a social club, it's a service club, and we're there for service." Well, she didn't want, she didn't want to hear any of it. Well, there were a lot of women, believe it or not, who opposed the idea of women in Rotary. It was a different world, a different time. Little bit of little known information. In the 1950s in Detroit, a club from India had put an item on the agenda to change the bylaws about women. It was defeated and the club went away. It just didn't press it. Even more interesting, the first Rotary Constitution did not specify that Rotarians had to be men, just persons of good character. But that was a time when there were few women in the workaday world. And because the men were the ones engaging in fellowship and business activities, the bylaws just evolved, just more into men of good character. If I could ask Paul Harris a question today, it would be, would you have intentionally excluded women from Rotary? Jack Davis, who was the president of Rotary International, said, "The unity of Rotary International was jeopardized by the unilateral move of the Duarte Club." Well, they sent a delegation to Duarte to ask for the charter of the club, and we had to turn in our charter. So as we looked around, Bill Brooks was Mr. Rotary, looked around and said, "Okay, we'll turn in the charter, and we won't call ourselves a Rotary Club. We'll rename ourselves the ex-Rotary Club of Duarte." Can you see the pin? That is a Rotary pin with an X on it. We became the ex-Rotary Club of Duarte. And we were the ex-Rotary Club of Duarte for 11 years. Remember, 11 years. Now, if you can imagine this, we don't know what the real reasons were for women being denied membership. But if you think a Rotarian has a daughter who's maybe 11, 12 years old when this first started, she's 23 by the time this was settled, by the time it came out of the court. 23. Did you ever wonder about the kind of world? Did you ever change your thinking and wonder about the kind of world she was growing up into? The things that she would be able to do? We worry about that. Well, we were told we could not be women members of Rotary. Well, we became the ex-Rotary Club of Duarte and a Rotarian attorney from a neighboring club, from the Arcadia Club, Sanford Smith, said, you know, I think we can take this case to court. I want you to remember, though, that our issue was growing members in a club. That's all it was at that time. And so we went to court, preparing to take it. We told Rotary we were going to take the issue to California courts. And Rotary petitioned the federal court to have it heard there. The reason for that was because New York had a case where they were petitioning the federal court for exclusionary rights for private club membership, and it had gone well for them. And so they wanted to piggyback on that. They wanted to ride on that precedent. But the federal court said, no, it can be heard in California. And so it was heard in the Superior Court of California. And immediately we woke up because we lost that first round. The court said, yes, Rotary has a right to choose whom its members are. And so we had to regroup. We knew something was wrong. But see, what we had lost sight of was the fact that this was a civil rights issue. It was not just a membership issue. To us, it was a membership issue. To the world, it was a civil rights issue. Well, Sanford knew we had to do some homework. And so he started seriously working on this and discovered that in California, as in a lot of states, there is a law in California, it's called the Unruh Act, that prohibits discrimination in public accommodation. And Rotary was considered a public accommodation because of its classification system, the members that he had. And because at that time, 80% of the Rotarians had their dues paid by their employers. And so using all this information about the Unruh Act and the classification system, the case was appealed to the appellate court in California. And the Unruh Act prevailed. And the appellate court reversed the action of the Superior Court. But now, immediately, Rotary says, oh, we're going to appeal this to the California Supreme Court. California Supreme Court. Remember, Superior Court, Appellate Court, California Supreme Court. But the California Supreme Court refused to hear the case, which essentially was affirming the decision of the appellate court. So now this decision was incumbent on all California clubs, but only California. Remember, this is the California Appellate Court. And so we moved on. But before Rotary, things changed. Before women, things changed very slowly in Rotary. And this was the year in which I was a president-elect, coming in as president and president-elect. Presidents-elect get trained by Rotary. So I was invited to attend PETS, President-elect Training Seminar. And I was reminded in the little postcard that was sent to me to bring my coat and tie because directory pictures would be taken. Well, you know, 290 men and one woman. Why should they get new postcards for the one woman? So they just sent me the same old postcard. Bring your coat and tie. So I took my coat and tie. I was the only woman there, and 290 men. But the nicest thing about that proportion was that, I mean, we're in this hotel in Garden Grove, 290 men and one woman. What do you think happens at restroom break time? Well, lines went on forever outside the men's restrooms. And I could just kind of sashay past. Now, hey, remember, this was 35 years ago. I could just sashay past into the women's restroom. There was not even one female speaker. but most of the men were cordial, friendly, and very interested in what was going on. So at the section in pets on Rotary International is divided into different segments. I heard our incoming governor discuss the case, and he said, Rotary International will appeal to the United States Supreme Court. And we have every reason to believe we win. I don't know what his reasons were, but that's what he said. But I sat there in my seat and I thought, the US Supreme Court, I'm a school person. I know about Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court. I know about the Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas with the Supreme Court. Those are big cases. Why would they want to hear a case about women in a service club? See, my head still wasn't there yet at the place where this was a civil rights issue. And of course, he said, it's just a case of a small club making a big noise, kind of the mouse that roared. So I have to show you my mouse. We have a mouse that roared. He used to have a rotary icon on his back. Can you see him? The mouse that roared. So I went back to Duarte and we redid our banners and we called it ex-Rotary Club of Duarte, the mouse that roared. And I said, we became that for a long time. See, I didn't think that in 1987, somebody would have been appealing a case about women's membership in a service club to the United States Supreme Court. My private opinion was that it was not important enough to be heard. But I did appeal because as one of its attorneys so commonly put it, they're trying to force us to take everyone in, just like a motel. RI's argument was that the ruling violated their First Amendment right of association. And the court listened. But on the 4th of May, 1987, the court found that considering the size, purpose, selectivity, and exclusivity of Rotary's membership, the relationship among the club's members was not of the intimate or private variety which warrants First Amendment protection. So, made its decision and writing for the unanimous court. And by the way, it was 7-0. Sandra Day O'Connor did not vote because her husband was a Rotarian and there were other issues. Justice Powell, writing the decision, argued that many of Rotary's activities, including their meetings, are conducted in the presence of strangers. And because women members would not prevent the club from carrying out its purposes, there was no violation of association rights. Furthermore, he said, and listen to this because this was the big issue. Furthermore, he said, even if there were a slight encroachment on the rights of Rotarians to associate, that minimal infringement would be justified since it serves the state's compelling interest in ending sexual discrimination, gender discrimination. There it was. And here now we have a decision incumbent on all USA clubs, but just USA clubs. I was driving to my job. Remember, you guys are in the East Coast, we're on the West Coast. I was driving to my job as principal of an elementary school. The news came over the airwaves on the East Coast. So by the time it's 3 years late, 3 years, it's 3 hours later by the time I'm getting to school in Duarte. But it's just 20 minutes after I heard the news. And by the time I got there, I think all the media in the world were on my doorstep. And so were all the kids, because there are television cameras all over the place. And Warren Olney was going to do the interviewing for me. Well, Mary Lou, the other principal, and I were invited by the superintendent to come into the district office because we couldn't have all this stuff going on at the school. We have school to conduct. So we left and we went to the district office where we were interviewed by Warren Olney. And I was asked, because I was the incoming president, I was asked many questions to which I thought I gave studied and intelligent answers. Okay. But near the end of the interview, in fact, we were already on our feet, I was asked how I got selected to be president. Well, you don't ask Rotarians that question because they give you this dumb answer. Oh, I don't know. I must have missed the meeting. And believe it or not, that's what I said. Oh, I don't know. I very I must have missed the meeting. That was a decidedly unstudied moment. That evening, the story was the top of the news, the first item on the news. And here I was sitting, all this wonderful stuff I had said. Here I was sitting in a chair saying, oh, I don't know. I must have missed the meeting. You know what? And the world is out there saying, for 11 years, we waited to hear this. Well, I started to learn then of the capriciousness of the media. And I knew that I was going to have to adopt a more serious mode, and I do most of it. Back at the club, we had to move our meeting place because we couldn't accommodate all the visitors and the press who were ever so curious. I learned how to be circumscribed in any and all the answers that I would give to this case. This was also my year as incoming president, and I had to settle into the goals we had set, which included Polio Plus. That's the year it started, while the whole world was watching to see what we would do. We had some interesting telephone calls, including one that asked if the food were any better now that there were women in Rotary. And I explained that we were not cooking. Some were decidedly less pleasant. Some would make the person in your DEI committee really kind of cringe. We didn't get a welcome back from Rotary International, but we did get a new dues schedule, so we knew they knew we were. And then, of course, in 1989, 2 years later, following an impassioned plea by Frank Devlin, who died last year, the Council on Legislation voted to accept women members into Rotary. But it was not until April 2004, we would figure this out, 17 years later, April 2004, that the Rotarian printed articles about women in Rotary. And then I was the centerfold. I was full of dress, from top to toe in a black turtleneck. I was told when the photographer called to make the appointment to wear a black turtleneck. So I was covered up from top to toe. Rotary has finally removed the last vestiges of sexist language so that now they profit most and serve the best. And even more new, a club may not be chartered now unless its membership is open to both men and women. This did not start as a women's issue, but as a simple attempt to recruit more members into Rotary. How successful has that been? Can men and women work together in Rotary? They have for 25 years. Maybe 25, 26% of the members in the world are Rotarians. In the United States, it's about 30, 32. We still have room for growth. And that, of course, was the beginning of my journey through this humanitarian organization that is Rotary. The realization of the opportunity to serve in an ever-shrinking world, the opportunity to meet men and women who can see and articulate a need and its solution, no matter how difficult the way or meager the resources. President Matriagbe, previous RI president, said, women serve alongside men in every segment of life, in education, in medicine, in warehouses, and in construction. Why not in Rotary? Indeed, why not? I was in an incredibly fortunate place because it has brought such bounty into my life. I've served as district governor, and I've had the pleasure of talking to countless clubs here and overseas who are all fascinated by this story. I've made up in many clubs in other countries. I traveled constantly before the pandemic. But my first makeup internationally was in the Rotary Club of Clapham in London, where I was toasted on the same glass of champagne as Queen Elizabeth. I was the first woman visitor they had in that club. And of course, Jody told you we've some Ottawas and Josh in Nigeria, AIDS killing and so on. Have done a lot of work. I've gone on NITS campaigns in India. My big project is Deepa Willingham's school in India, and school in Piali Junction that I support with my money, with my contributions, with my Rotary contributions, but also with my time, because I try to go at least once a year, work with the teachers of that school. A school with 200 girls who have never been to school before, some of them going to school for the first time at 10 and 11 years old. And I go and I do training for those teachers. But I believe that there will come a time uh, when polio is gone, because we're going to eradicate it just the way we did smallpox and the way we're going to eradicate coronavirus. And of course, we have the help of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, WHO, UNICEF, and CDC, the same initials you hear when they talk about coronavirus. And of course, when we do, it would only have been the second disease wiped out from the face of the earth. Remember, smallpox was the first. In India, I've met Rotarians to whom service above self is a creed by which they give daily. They give not just of their money, but of themselves. I am interested in Rotoplast. I'm interested in Piali. I'm living out my grandmother's example. She taught me well. We had never heard the word service above self, but the example that she set me in her caring, thoughtful way shaped my life. Our core value is service above self. Here I was district governor, our goal was peace through service. And I do believe that until we meet the needs of people for food, clothing, shelter, clean water, healthcare, education, care of the environment, and all the basics, there is no place in which they can receive and absorb and respect the concept of peace. And of course, my project is education for girls. I have learned over the years that my community is not just the residential area in which I live, or the town that supports it, or even the state that governs it. We are citizens of the world, where every action, however remote or seemingly far removed, has a ripple effect on us and on all others. Listen to the news from around the world and look at the effect it has on us. To the extent that they are well, we are well. I think of Martin Luther King, whose birth we just observed. He said, remind ourselves to ask ourselves each day, what have we done today to help someone? To whom much is given, much is expected. Attracting members to help us do the good work is the key. We wear Rotary pins as ID pins, even an ex-Rotary pin. Anyone noticing your pin, tell that it says Rotary International, and if they can, do they know what Rotary is? I fly a lot, or I used to, mostly on airplanes, and a good way to attract someone's attention is to drop your pin on the floor in front of you. Well, unless you're a contortionist, 5 feet long, or Rotarian on a mission, it's almost impossible to retrieve your pin. Now, if somebody in the seat next to you would make a good Rotarian, it would also help you get your pin. So in the process, stop to explain what is so important about the pin and what Rotary represents. And in so doing, you've told at least one more person about Rotary. Give him a little brochure that says, what is Rotary? Or give him your elevator speech. Write your elevator speech tonight if you don't have one. Right after you take off your pin and put it on your pajamas. Pajamas? Yeah. Explain to that person sleeping next to you how important you think Rotary is. That's why you're putting the pin on your pajamas. I bet he will laugh about the wearing of the pin. But the bottom line is, next day, he will go to work and around the coffee pot or the water machine, he will be telling that story. You know what my wife did? She put a Rotary pin on her pajamas last night. And he'll say, what's Rotary? What's a Rotary pin? Hey, there's an opening. And you just make those openings all the time. So I'm a Rotarian who, with other Rotarians in this ever-shrinking world, work to make it a happier place. Cleaner, more self-sustaining, and more peaceful than it was when I came into it. I will support the fact that a Rotary functions on the edge of tomorrow, a tomorrow into which we can catapult aimlessly or carefully negotiate entry into. And working with young people, this is the time. It's right now, just as it was in the 70s for women, it's right for young people to focus on Rotary. We need to focus on those new generations with all their energy and zeal. Find men and women of character who, in service above self, will know that they profit most, who serve the best, and they will wholeheartedly engage Rotary and change lives. And that story, by the way, is in this book. If anybody's interested in this book, it's called Women Also Serve. Not Women Also Serve. Women Also Serve. And you can get that book. All the proceeds go to the Rotary Foundation. And if you write to me, we will send you that book, and I'd be happy to answer any question.
Thank you, Dr. Whitlock. Thank you so much for your legacy of service above self, for your legacy of breaking barriers, for breaking civil rights for our country and our world, and for helping the world to eradicate polio. We do not have time for questions, but you have done such a fantastic job of sharing your journey, your club's journey, and Rotary's journey. We cannot thank you and your club enough for being the mouse that roared, and for those men that supported you joining the club, and the amazing journey that you went through to allow women to join Rotary. Thank you for your work in India with the school. And we are still at the point where we need to grow members. There are a lot of guests on this call, so we welcome you to join. And in honor of your visit with our club today, we have a book donation. It is Don't Ask Me Where I'm From by Jennifer DeLeon. We will mail a book plate to you so that you can sign that. And in honor of our Logos Academy Students of the Month, that will be donated to their school library. Next.
Okay, this should go in the school library too.
Well,
Okay.
I'd love that. We'll do an exchange.
Those need to know.
Thank you, Dr. Whitlock. Many blessings and take care to you. Rotarians, next week, our club meeting will feature a virtual speaker, Ron Harris. He is the Vice President of Diversity for Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Tennessee. He was a speaker at our large club conference, and he will speak on the impact of diversity in the 21st century. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Blessings to you, Dr. Whitlock. And our closing song is Feeling All Right by Joe Cocker. Take care.